Welcome, everyone. Our guest today is Taryn Kaschock Russell, who is the director of the Harkness Dance Center of the 92nd Street Y in New York. Taryn was a former Joffrey ballerina. She was a dancer with Hubbard Street, was director of Hubbard 2, and then switching gears, Taryn moved to New York and became associate director and then acting artistic director of the dance department at Juilliard. Well, thank you so much for joining us at Miami-Dade. So after an extensive performance career in both classical and modern dance, and then jumping into artistic management, what is it that you hope to bring to audiences, and what do you feel like is necessary to bring to audiences and dancers?
I think for me, the biggest things that first come up are connection and shared humanity, and finding experiences that allow us as human beings to enter into a theater or into a space where we're viewing movement around us or watching on a screen where it makes us feel. The older I get, the more important it feels to me to make sure that the experiences that we're presenting as presenters give people joy, but also allow space for sadness and mourning and all of the things that we do experience as human beings, but told through an art form. And I think, again, if I could do anything as a presenter that would be impactful, it would be allowing people to feel a greater humanity when they're watching performance.
When you took over the Harkness Dance Center in September of 2019, how have your goals of diversification and your desire for diversification in its various capacities been addressed?
What really led me to 92nd Street Y and the Harkness Dance Center had to do with the risk-taking and the space that was created for individual artists prior to them being these large-named artists that we now know, like a Martha Graham, like Alvin Ailey. I still can't fathom the thought of being the presenter to first show the world Revelations.
And Revelations was first presented at the Y?
It was first presented at the Y.
I didn't know that. Wow, cool.
And digging into that history and starting to recognize that although I was taking on a position that held this very large past that seemed titanic, to really start to view it from when it happened. And really what I was tasked with was to look at all of the different offerings with dance that had branched out of the Harkness Dance Center and try to align them in a cohesive vision to move forward. Really, my first 6 months, the challenges were understanding the physical infrastructure and the programmatic issues that went along with how many things were being programmed and how little space actually existed. After people were used to diverging and having these wonderful avenues that they could take ideas to try to come together and get people, okay, let's bring them together. How do we do that together? That was the beginning of my job. So I feel like I took all 6 months leading up to March of 2020, and I got into a good place, and I was getting positioned to kind of relaunch and think about where we were going to be in September of this year. And then everything changed.
The digital age has undeniably changed the game for dancers and educators and administrators. In your opinion, what strategies seem to have been successful and are worth pursuing?
I'm loving the connections that were made during this time that wouldn't have been made otherwise. And so some of those collaborative efforts, whether it be musicians collaborating with dancers or dancers that might not necessarily come together in a completely different visual medium, I think those have inspired me the most. People that have gone kind of outside the box and taken up ideas so that they're not trying to replicate what we view in person, but instead really lean into the newness of this moment that we're in and let it innovate and move into something else. You have that idea of the immediacy of the moment, which I think is the only real thing that feels lost to me when we're doing these beautiful film works, is that immediacy, that rawness, that anything could happen, someone could fall, that the live theater performance. So I'm kind of fascinated in what can happen with that. I think that's a little bit untapped. I think anything that really strikes the imagination in this virtual space that people have been working with is going down the right alley.
I know, Taryn, that you are a big advocate for dancers with scoliosis, something that you yourself have dealt with your entire career. What is the message that you want to send?
Well, thank you. And my message is, after years and years of thinking that I had to take something away or change something, I think that I finally recognized that what was most successful in my dancing with scoliosis is that you can never take something away from your own body. Your own body is what it is, and what you can do is occupy more space. And not only as someone with scoliosis, but as a woman, that's been a really impactful message for me to know, is that you cannot box yourself in or become smaller or cut something out, but you can become something more. I have started to reflect on what is part of me and how I can speak about it without shame. I think shame is probably the right word. So I think also recognizing not only that for so many years I didn't want to tell anyone exactly what my story was, because I didn't want anyone to think they were going to be exactly like me or that I had to be an archetype for anyone. I would love to inspire people, but I also recognize everyone has different experiences. And in becoming a mother, it really resonated to me that so much of my ability to see things from a different perspective came out of having scoliosis. That was my otherness, and I very much understood what it felt like not to be what the ideal is, or what's put in front of a space. It made it very important for me to start to connect with people so that I could help them embrace what they are, and so that they can become something else. Again, not putting myself or my own story as the one that they have to go towards, but as one of many that they could go towards, that has a positive outcome, that also experienced adversity, that could talk through that and recognize that vulnerability in itself can become a strength.
I think that you're a great role model for people, because so many dancers, they think that they have this and they can't. And the fact that you did so much.
Understanding so much of the fear that we have comes from not seeing people occupy space before we walk into it, and someone that, seeing our reflection, seeing representation of who we are. And again, both as a dancer with scoliosis, but also as a mother with scoliosis. I was just as scared to have children because I thought I wasn't going to be able to. So when it took me a while to become pregnant, all of the insecurity about, did I take all of these years with my profession and now I can't be this other thing that I want to be? all of that juggling, and recognizing at the end of the day that the fear itself was unnecessary. Well, not unnecessary, so I won't say that. Fear is absolutely necessary, and probably I couldn't have taken it away if I tried.
But dealing with the fear, dealing with it in your way, in the way that you do. Taryn, you exude such a positive and grounded vibe. It's unbelievable. How have you maintained this positive, optimistic outlook during challenging times? And perhaps what has been the greatest lesson you've learned?
I do not take myself seriously. I recognize that when I was a performer myself, that I was a cheerleader. Yeah, so I think that the energy in a space is something for me that changes me. So even in this time where there have been challenges, again, being a mother has been a lifesaver, because I need to make everything fun for my children, and that anything that we're being faced with, we're capable of coming to that challenge together. And I think that as we look back on this time 10 years from now, my entire family, my small unit, is going to be changed from this time.
Right,
and
of course.
And
everyone,
all of us as a society spend so much time away doing other things. We're also busy. What is that beautiful John Lennon quote? Life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. I think that this time has really refocused on that life that happens in that space, and made it the golden and something to value. And I know I'm definitely a glass half full person, but I don't want to take anything for granted.
Right. Well, certainly you're an inspiration to speak with, and that you've done all that you do, plus you've been like an amazing mother. And thank you so much for sharing your life with us, your thoughts with us. And I think that everybody's going to be a little bit more inspired by listening to you.